I just want to call my mom and tell her I'm sorry.
Yes.
And just say thank you and I'm sorry for being so crap as a teenager.
Hey everyone, I'm Lindsay Miller with Popsugar, and I'm here today with Saoirse Ronan, who's starring in Lady Bird. And I really loved this film because I think we have seen so many coming-of-age movies about boys, and this was a rare exception. It's about a high school girl. So was that part of what kind of attracted you to this project in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've gotten so used to seeing boys grow up on screen and seeing them sort of like very much be an autonomous figure and an individual, and they grow because of everything around them. Whereas with a lot of female coming of age stories, it's usually in relation to a guy.
Right,
or
a
man,
romance.
or a romance, yeah. And, you know, that's, of course, a huge part of anyone's life, especially when you're young and it's the first time, but it's not everything. Your friendships, and I know my relationship with my mum, who I'm so close to, that's the staple relationship in my life, and that's the one that I always go back to and I can, you know, rely on. So getting a chance to actually honor that and that whole dynamic.
Well, in playing a teen girl, you have to be very vulnerable on screen. We see you get drunk and have sex and cry and sing and dance. And I know you said you were really nervous to see the finished product of the film.
Yeah. I was
so
nervous.
You got your friends together, you drank some wine.
I got my best mate to come with me, and we were in London at the time. We were both shooting another film. And I was so nervous. And at first I said, I was like, I'm fine. I can go on my own. She was like, do you want me to just go with you? I was like, yeah, just please come with me. And so we had exactly 3 glasses of white wine before we went in. And it was so funny. I've never had this experience before. Because for me, like, I've never enjoyed watching anything I'm in. Like, I don't get anything out of it. I get very anxious. Like, I'm not into it at all. And from the first frame, I had been clutching her hand. And then I just sort of like slowly started to let go and sort of leaned forward and was so into it as an audience member. I've never had that experience before.
Wow.
So it was fantastic.
Well, and your mom's here today.
Yeah, she's right there.
Okay. Did you watch it with her? Because it's really a story about a mom and daughter, too.
It is. She hasn't watched it yet because she only got in last night from Dublin.
Okay.
And she's very jet lagged. So if I showed it to her now, she'd be like, what are we watching? Who is this on screen?
She might just fall asleep.
She'll probably just fall asleep or just like continue to cry through the whole thing even when it's not sad. But we're going to go to the cinema to watch it in the next couple of days.
I love it. I need to watch it with my mom, too.
But you do, and I think it's one of those things that people go and see, and the general consensus has been like, I just want to call my mom and tell her I'm sorry.
Yes.
And just say thank you and I'm sorry for being so crap as a teenager. It's actually great because I've seen it with my best friend, and now I really want to see it with her.
Yeah. What were you like as a teenager? I know you're not that many years removed from your teenage years, but
I was fine. I was very well behaved.
That's a great adjective.
I was fine. I was average. No, I was a well behaved kid. I was like Greta as well, I am a real sort of rule follower. And so for us to get together and collaborate on Lady Bird, she was sort of like the girl that we wished we could be, almost. You know, she's like the rock star version of us. You know the way like Beyonce
she's very
is Sasha
cool.
Fierce.
She's the Sasha
She's
Fierce.
our Sasha Fierce.
The Saoirse Fierce, right?
Saoirse Gerwig Fierce, yeah.
I love it. I also wanted to ask you too, you know, you didn't go to a traditional high school or college, so were there moments in this film, whether it was like prom or when she's moving into her dorm room, that you thought, I kind of would have liked to experience that?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I think moving into the dorm, I don't know, there's just something really romantic about that. I'm sure it wears off very quickly.
Those long, skinny twin beds are not a thing you want.
So lovely.
Yeah.
But I think I wanted to go to college originally to just be with kids my own age. That was why I wanted to do it. But I haven't really felt that as much since. But that's the great thing about doing films as well, is that it can kind of give you an insight into a world that like you wished you had been a part of, or something that you don't know anything about. So
well, and I wanted to ask you as well, you know, Lady Bird is not her real name in the film. Did you ever go through a phase where you wanted to change your name? I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
What did you want to call yourself?
Elisa, I think that was it. I have no idea. But I think everyone
expecting.
goes through a phase like that when you have a unique name like you do, which is beautiful.
Yeah, but when you're a kid, it's that
Right.
thing of like, I didn't have it when I was a teenager, but when I was a child, when I was like 5, I wanted a normal name because nobody was called Saoirse at that stage in Ireland, and even in Ireland, like, not many people could pronounce my name, even if they were Irish, which is worrying. So I went through a stage when I was a child of, like, you know, asking mum and dad to call me Sarah or something.
Sarah.
Something
Okay,
very sort of strong.
And they said no.
And they said no, and they said, Saoirse, shut up. But then I think after a while I kind of thought, well, it's different and it's mine, and now it's something that I wouldn't change for the world.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
One thing I did love in this movie is it kind of captures that moment where you realize that your parents are people.
Yes.
And they have vulnerabilities and you can hurt their feelings and
Yeah.
they're flawed. And I think we've all had that moment. I thought this was like a really unique thing in this movie that doesn't get tackled a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, the film basically is made up of in-between moments. There isn't anything, like, sort of hugely dramatic that happens in it. There's no big, turning point.
Right.
Even. It's little individual moments that make up somebody's life, and it is these little moments that actually you do remember, and sort of make you who you are. And I think Greta was so clever about writing all of the characters so well and making all of the supporting characters so well rounded that you could follow them if you wanted to. So the moments where, we find out that her dad suffers with depression and he's been on medication for years and she didn't know that, and she didn't even know they had financial difficulties, and her mum, even if they've had a massive argument, will still mend her dress and put it in her bedroom when she's asleep. And it's even just thinking about it.
I know. It's like
you should go see it. It's really good.
Right now,
but it's those little in between moments that make the film, real, I suppose.
How is the dynamic different working with a female director? Because I know you've talked so much about how this was like a true collaboration with you and Greta.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've necessarily experienced it more because she's a woman. I think it's just because of the type of person she is and the type of person I am, and we both respected each other enough to, like, share what the other one was thinking and really kind of be open with one another. I mean, I have to say, like, I've worked with lots of female directors since the very start of working for me. Like, my very first film was directed by a woman, and I've just never thought about it as being gender specific.
Right.
They're just either a good director or they're not. And she's a great director. And so she was, especially for her first film, to, like, because it's terrifying. I can't imagine how terrifying it is. But to be that open and to be able to actually allow yourself to be vulnerable with the actors by allowing them to take ownership over it is incredible, and that's all down to her. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think, of course, the topic that's dominating, not just in Hollywood right now, but in the broader culture, is sexual harassment and assault. And I know you've spoken a little bit about this, but I think women have so many emotions around this topic. Fear, anxiety, anger. What was kind of the emotion for you when these stories really started coming out? I think starting with Weinstein, and there was just, this snowball effect.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it would be wrong to say that we're all shocked that this was going on. Like, maybe we didn't know to the extent that this had been happening or the frequency of it, but we all knew that predatory men have been led away with so much in any industry, really. And so I think when that's repeatedly being confirmed every day. I was also on a film set at the time, working with a lot of incredible women and with another female director, and it was her first film, and I was very disappointed. I was very disappointed in, and I know it's happening in every workplace, but I was very disappointed in our industry because this is a world that I've grown up in, and I believe in it, and I believe in, so many of the people that make it great and the work that they do, and it's very sad that anyone like that could get so far and become so powerful and make so much money off of these young people who are vulnerable and on their own. But the positive to it is that the bravery that it's taken for these people to come forward means that we can walk onto a film set in the future and not have that problem.
Right.
And will be safe. And hopefully, I mean, I hope it's not something that's just a hot topic and we all sort of forget about it in a few weeks. I really hope it needs to be a conversation that continues, so that actual change happens and safety measures are put into place
Right.
for kids, you know. So hopefully it really does make a change.
Well, and you referenced that movie that you worked on with a lot of women.
Yeah.
You played Mary, Queen of Scots
Yes.
in this film. Did you
Yeah.
learn anything from playing a royal? What did you take away from that?
I learned so much. I learned so much. It sounds so cheesy, but she genuinely made me a stronger person, because she was 19 when she suddenly had the weight of the world, literally, or Scotland and the UK at least, on her shoulders, a massive responsibility, and it was something that she wasn't really prepared for. She wasn't essentially like trained, if for want of a better word, to be this type of ruler. And she was incredible at it, and she was incredibly savvy and privy and astute. And she had everyone against her, her family, all of the men in her council. And the only people that she could rely on was, she had a best friend called Rizzio, who was this Italian musician that came over to perform for her. And her handmaidens, she had these 4 handmaidens who were with her for her whole life. And they were all called Mary. Like, they were actually all called Mary.
The Marys.
The Marys,
Yeah.
the 4 Marys. And they were her best friends. And the only other relationship that she really relied on was this sort of, I don't know, elusive relationship that she had with Elizabeth, you know. And so that's what the story focuses on, is how these female connections and relationships can conquer so much, you know.
Well, please keep playing these complicated, fascinating women.
Okay.
Lady Bird, Mary, Queen of Scots. Cannot wait to see that film. Thank you so much for stopping by. And check out Lady Bird in theaters right now.